Blessed be the Lord. My Return into Tibet, Cosmic Teachings of a Lama. By Samael Aun Weor, Christmas Message 1969 to 1970. Part 3. Chapter 34. The Causes of Existence. We can and must classify the multiple causes of existence in 3 orders. 1. Physical causes. 2. Metaphysical causes. 3. Karmic causes. The first cosmic order of causality has already been studied, even though in a superficial way, by the men of the official science. The second causal cosmic order has been very deeply investigated by Oriental sages. The third causal cosmic order has been scrutinized with the open eye of Dangma by the Divine Mukta or self-realized adepts. All the known physical laws, like gravitation, cohesion, weight, etc., are included within the first category. The desire of living in this physical world, the longing for sentient life, which is a manifested result of the nidanas and maya, illusion, are very hidden within the second causal category. The laws of action and consequence are found within the third category. There is no effect without a cause. Before the dawn of the Mahamanvantara, the 2 first causal orders were destroyed. If the third order would have been destroyed, then the solar universe within which we live, move, and have our being would never have been born in the infinite space. It is unquestionable that any planet or solar system that comes into cosmic existence is the outcome of karma. Yonder, in the Preterite solar system, which is now represented by all the moons of our present solar system of ors, the gods intensively worked and even had their mistakes. The gods also commit mistakes. The worlds of the past solar system are now cadavers, moons. Each one of the present planets from our solar system is related with these moons. The Earth is no exception. This is known by the divine and humans. The Earth is a living reincarnation of the lunar soul. This is known by any Mahatma. Unfortunately, and as a breaking point of woes, our terrestrial planetary fire is very poor and is charged with lunar karma. This is due to the fact that the fruits of such a fire were formerly very poor in the lunar world. This is how it is written in the Book of the Law. We have this karmic outcome visible in this valley of tears. Indeed, this terrestrial humanity is a lost case. You know this. If the gods had not owed cosmic karma, then the Earth and the whole solar system of ors presently would not exist. Before the dawn of the great day, the invisible which is and the visible which was remained within the eternal not being, the unique being. Chapter 35. Atomic Bombs in Orbit. Russia is organizing a space horror. The sound note of caution was given in Washington. They said that these infernal atomic loads can be detonated by remote control. This very unpleasant Machiavellian system of horror consists of a series of atomic bombs in orbit, which are abominable, execrable, and horrifying. Indeed, life upon the face of the earth is now becoming almost impossible. Now, the evil of the world overflows and has reached to heaven. Indeed, this is not a very beautiful intention from the Kremlin, which is to place in motion their monstrous program denominated Fractional System for Orbital Bombing. The dreadful SFOB bombs indeed are neither a beautiful caress nor a demonstration of love for this wretched, suffering humanity. Once in orbit, those nuclear bombs would be placed at a very low height, about 160 kilometers above the Earth, and it is obvious that before they could complete their first circuit, they would be detonated by remote control against military objectives and defenseless cities. It is indubitable that these horrendous SFOB bombs would fatally navigate a fraction of an orbit before its detonation. The lower altitude would give to these devices the possibility of not being detected by the swift, watchful radar system possessed by the United States of America. We have been notified that the Russians have carried with success at least 13 scientific SFOB-type experiments. It has been said to us that the initial 7 orbital atomic experiments failed, but they said that the following 6 ones were a complete success. It is obvious that the Yankees, USA, are not meek sheep either. Thus, we can be absolutely sure that not only will they imitate Russia's example, but moreover, they probably will invent something worse. A Soviet minister threateningly shouted about a Pacific coexistence or atomic war. Unfortunately, Tyrians and Trojans hate peace, and this is already demonstrated with clear, blunt, and definitive facts. In these instances of world crisis and demographic explosions, alarming symptoms of world war exist. Everywhere. The radioactive particles from nuclear explosions will profoundly alter the superior zones of our terraqueous atmosphere. It is obvious, this is known by any scientist, that such zones constitute something like a supreme filter for the solar rays. When such a marvelous filter is completely altered by the filthy nuclear explosions, then unquestionably, the atmosphere will not be able to filter, analyze, and decompose the solar rays into light and heat. Therefore, the result will be that we will see the sun black as a sackcloth of hair. Revelation 6 verse 12. It is important to know that the superior layer of the planetary atmosphere is the living support of our world and that its alteration will cooperate in the intensification of earthquakes and seaquakes. Then the cities will break down, turn into dust, and maritime waves, tsunamis, never seen before will lash the shores. It is written in the Christian gospel that a very strange sound will emerge from within the very bottom of the seas. Unknown sicknesses, never discovered before by medical science, are already appearing as a consequence of atomic abuse. The phosphorus of the human brains will be contaminated by the radiations, and many people will lose their reasoning and will go mad around the streets. Hospitals will be loaded with sicknesses and there will be no relief. It is evident that the waters of the earth and heaven will be also contaminated. Therefore, the harvests will be lost. These will not be utilized by the hungry multitudes due to the fact that the crops will be contaminated by atomic radiation. Then, we will see horrifying dantesque scenes around the streets, and amidst the smoky ruins of this perverse civilization of vipers we will only hear wailing, howling, whistling, neighs, squeaks, bellows, gaggles, meows, barking, snorts, snoring, and croaks. Chapter 36. The Demon Net. The Infinite and I were found face to face. The divine clouds from the west were like a horde of formless dogs chasing a cloud of titans. Thus, within that scarlet-purple deepness, ineffable things were shown. Suddenly, the obscure frieze became illuminated by the sun, so its goldenness, internal and delicate, sidereal and pure, broke asunder into exquisite splendors, with mysterious moon-like paleness that slowly vanished within a placid opalescent and silvery vision. Then, I abandoned my dense body, and dressed with the wedding garment of the soul, I entered into the superior worlds. What subsequently happened in those regions of 1001 nights is well known by the gods. I saw myself delectably lying down in a royal nuptial chamber. It was love's hour. Thus, all of the waves of rivers, fountains, and seas sung in an ineffable chorus, preluding a rhythm from the Song of Songs. The blessed incense from the exhaled perfume of all flowers was floating as an enchantment. This was irradiated within the zephyrs, which with the humming of their wings, were essaying a concert of kisses and sighs. It was the nuptial hour. Nature, coming out from chaos, still dazzled, inebriated with youth and beauty, virginal and sacred, veiling herself in mystery, was smiling. "Kiss me, my love," said to me the Eve of Hebrew mythology, or Chondrigia, Herodias, the woman as a symbol. "I will kiss thee as a sister with a sacred osculum. I abhor animal passion, thou knowest it." The dense forest, having the presentiment of the new day, was covering its wooded grounds with rumors. The happy and playful water was running away among canes and trembling reeds, while the angel of the mist was shaking the miraculous drops of his wings upon the flowers. It was the nuptial hour. The land from 1001 nights was sleeping as a delectable virgin under her chaste veil, and when the divine sun as a lover surprised her in order to kiss her with sanctity, he illuminated heaven. Thus, bathed in splendor, filled with the dawning, I abandoned the royal nuptial chamber and went out with her. We walked slowly, 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 until the edge of an old precipice. "Be careful," exclaimed the maiden spouse. I answered, "Do not be afraid. The danger is not here, it has already passed by." The danger was really there, inside in the nuptial chamber. It is not the ending of which you have to be afraid, but the beginning, whose outcome becomes this abyss. Hence, after uttering these words with a voice which surprised even my own self, the maiden lover from that delectable ordeal disappeared, as a dint of magic. Then, the beloved one, Atman, my real self, the innermost, the secret master, came unto me. The blessed one joyfully advanced towards me in the act of teaching me and greeting me at once. The venerable one came attired with the sacred garment of the principalities. His steps were preceded by my spiritual soul, Buddhi, who was also attired with the same vesture. I, the wretched human soul, the causal or superior monus of theosophy, joyfully embraced my twin sister, Buddhi. The blessed one was staring at us and smiling. Ah! I said unto myself, I must eliminate the frightful demon of evil will from my own interior nature. This demon is the horrifying net of the Egyptian mysteries. Thus, only by doing this can I earn the right to use the sacred vesture that I see on my sister and on my beloved one. May the gods furnish me with thy throne, O Ra, furnishing me likewise with thy glorious body. I travelleth over the paths of Ra at daybreak to drive back the demon net, the demon of evil will. He cometh in disguise behind a column of passional flames, thus on a narrow and long corridor of esoteric ordeals, he unexpectedly attacks me. Verily, relevant to the dangers expected unto me, I have been warned in advance. I attaineth unto thy boat, O Ra, and behold I sitteth therein, thus, I receive the rightly deserved offerings. This is textually taken from the Book of the Dead of ancient Egypt. On earth, peace towards men of good will. If people could understand what this phrase signifies, if they could learn how to perform the will of the Father, if they could intentionally dissolve the demon net, the devil of evil will, then the earth would become an Eden. Each one would learn to respect the free will of his neighbors. Nevertheless, woe! 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 Everything in this world is lost. All of the human beings want to dominate their neighbors. They want to climb, to show themselves off on the top of the ladder, to boast of themselves. The abominable demon net powerfully reigns upon the face of the earth. Therefore, during those disquieting days of intensive esoteric work, I had to study this sinister demon of evil will very deeply. I am referring to the terrible net. It is written that any intellectual animal carries inside the horrendous Caiaphas, the third traitor of Hiram Abiff. If Judas, the dreadful demon of desire, the abominable Apope, is thus so depraved, if Pilate the tenebrous one of the mind, the hideous devil high, causes us too much pain with his indignant justifications and washing of hands, then, what can we say about the horrendous Caiaphas? I saw my own demon of evil will, climbing up step after step throughout the stairs of my own abode. It is unquestionable that he possessed a Caesarean, impotent, and terrible aspect. To reduce into cosmic dust this perverse demon of evil will is only possible with the power of the Divine Mother Kundalini, the igneous serpent of our magical powers. It was necessary for me to study in a detailed way all of these occult concomitances. To penetrate many times into the region of natural causes, into the world of conscious will, with the evident purpose of investigating mysteries, was urgent for me. Hence, I navigated within the profound chaotic waters of the infinite space, and I saw and heard extraordinary things, which for the wretched, rational animals are impossible to comprehend. It is clear that in a state of perfect lucidity, in the world of conscious will, I received direct information about the work. Then, I comprehended in an integral way the displeased attitude of many people who unjustly are wrathful with me, just because I do not accept their theories. Woeful creatures! During a very deep samadhi, I saw many boats with white sails which were adorned with multiple diamond signs. Crosses, roses, diamantine stars were adorning the mystic boats of that profound ocean. Solar boats, Mahatmas, diamond souls, Jivanmuktas, Mahatmas, navigate within the waters of the chaos. When one is very close to God, one must be very prudent. Whosoever eliminates the third traitor of Hiram Abiff is converted into a diamond soul. The Egyptian Book of the Occult Abode states, I, Osiris, hold a threat over the tempest of heaven. I wrap with bandages and fortify Horus, the good god, continuously, by means of the esoteric work. I, whose forms are diverse and multiple, receive my offerings in the hours established by fate. The tempests are immobilized in front of my rostrum. Behold that Ra, the Logos, arrives accompanied by 4 superior divinities. Everybody sails in heaven on the solar boat. I, the Osiris, I depart on my journey at the hour established by fate. Thus, mounted upon the cordage of the solar boat, or diamond boat, I begin my new existence. Chapter 37. The 7 Cosmo-Creators. Christic esotericism mentions the 7 creator spirits in front of the throne of the Lamb. Therefore, it is important to clarify this matter and to place at once the cards on the table. These 7 Cosmo-Creators are the same Dayan Chohans who clearly correspond to the Hebrew Elohim. The cosmic order is the following. 1. Moon, Regent Gabriel. 2. Mercury, Regent Raphael. 3. Venus, Regent Uriel. 4. Sun, Regent Michael. 5. Mars, Regent Samuel. 6. Jupiter, Regent Zachariel. 7. Saturn, Regent Orpheal. It is unquestionable that the Dhyanis successively watch each one of the 7 rounds and root races of our planetary chain. It is obvious that each one of the 7 emanates from himself his own human soul, that is to say, his bodhisattva, when it is necessary. It is indubitable that anyone from the 7 can send his bodhisattva anywhere. I, personally, am the bodhisattva of Samuel, the 5th of the 7, and any esotericist knows that I am the one who has suffered the most. My real innermost being is in himself an Osiris, Isis, Horus, Yod-Heve, the heart of heaven in accordance with the Mayan Popol Vuh, Adam Kadmon, Brahma-Viraj, etc., etc., etc. Before unfolding himself into the duad and into the triad, my real innermost being is the Pythagorean monad, the unique one, the Buddhist onadad, the Ahin Soph, En Soph Or, Chaldean Pneumikon, etc., etc., etc. However, in regard to myself, I am the Bodhisattva of the Lord, the innermost. I do not ever pretend to boast of being perfect. My duty is to teach the 5th truth, the 5th gospel, the 5th Veda. It is not necessary to wait for the coming of the 5th round, as many believe, in order for my doctrine to be known. Here you have my doctrine. Therefore, whosoever hears my voice and follows it, I will liken him unto a wise man who built his house upon the living rock, and the floods and tempests came and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was built upon a solid foundation. Yet, whosoever rejects my word can certainly be compared unto a foolish man who built his house upon the sand, and the rivers and anguished tempests came and beat upon that house. And it fell into the precipice with a great noise, for it had not a solid foundation. I can never deny that I have been with this terrestrial humanity since the dawn of creation. My Father, who is in secret, is perfect, but it is unquestionable that I, his bodhisattva, cannot show off any perfections. By no means would I commit a sin of immodesty if I emphatically affirm that I have been a witness of the nightfall and dawning of various Mahamanvantras, cosmic days. My duty is to give testimony of all that I have seen and heard. This humanity needs with urgency a legitimate orientation. During the Mahamanvantra of Padma or Lotus of Gold, I accomplished in the lunar world a very similar mission to the one that in these instants I am accomplishing on this planet Earth. I taught the Selenites the 5th truth, yet it is obvious that it was rejected by an unanimity of votes. The outcome was death on the cross. It is obvious that whosoever becomes a redeemer dies crucified. Some few Selenites accepted the 5th gospel. These ones, after hard work, became self-realized in depth and converted themselves into angels. It is written in the great book of life that at the end of that lunar apocalypse, a new group accepted the doctrine. Therefore, another planetary abode was given to those repented ones, where presently they are self-realizing themselves. Any Mahatma can verify for himself with his open eye of Dangme that those Selenite multitudes who formerly pronounced themselves against the 5th gospel presently live in an underground world. They converted themselves into authentic Lucifers. At the end of the 7th round of the lunar chain, the virginal sparks, rays, or divine lightning bolts submerged themselves within the absolute without any self-realization, save some few exceptions. These were the men angels who indeed accepted the doctrine. When the failed virginal sparks submerged themselves within the uncreated light of the abstract absolute space, they radically abandoned their tenebrous ex-personalities who were violently precipitated through the devolving path. It is obvious that such sinister ex-personalities or Lucifers continue devolving, going backwards, descending into the infernal worlds. They slowly descend throughout the animal, vegetal, and mineral stages. Only the second death can liberate these souls. Thus, they can eventually restart the ascension, from the mineral to the human being. It is then absolutely false to asseverate that at the end of a Mahamanvantara, cosmic day, all of the living beings attain the state of Parinishpana or absolute perfection. Yang Grub. Radical perfection is never the outcome of the evolving mechanics. The revolution of the consciousness is another thing. However, this is an unpleasant thing for everybody. You know this. Jesus, the great Kabir, stated, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me." Matthew 16 verse 24. To deny himself signifies to dissolve the pluralized I. To take up his cross, which by itself is 100% phallic, factually signifies a sexual crossing, to work in the flaming forge of Vulcan with the evident purpose of achieving the second birth. To follow the intimate Christ signifies sacrifice, to be willing to give even the last drop of blood for this suffering humanity. So, the end of a Mahamanvantara does not include the realization of the innermost self of all creatures. Therefore, while holding my hand over my heart, I can tell you that it is very difficult to find self-realized people. We, all of the human bipeds, are more or less demons. To stop being demons, to convert ourselves into something different, distinct, is something that corresponds to the mysteries. Nevertheless, why would something be given to people that they do not want, if they, the multitudes, are happy with the way they are, if they do not wish to be different? Therefore, neither the evolving mechanics, nor even the twilight of the Mahamanvantara could compel them to be distinct. The radical change, the realization of the innermost self, is the outcome of a series of frightful super-efforts performed on and inside ourselves here and now. Therefore, to achieve a radical change, a definitive transformation, is only possible based on tremendous self-efforts. It would be an absurdity to suppose for even a moment that the in-depth change, the authentic interior self-realization, could be the outcome of an involuntary and mechanical way, as the fanatics of the dogma of evolution think. So long as a human being does not achieve the state of Anupadika, it is absolutely impossible for him to experience the nature of parinirvana. The true nature of parinirvana was publicly taught up until the days of the Yogacarya school. However, since then, this doctrine was kept in secret, since it is obvious that the rational homunculi are not prepared in order to comprehend it. Chapter 38. Cancer. What is cancer? We answer this question by emphasizing the idea that it is the disorderly and anarchical development of the cells of the patient's own organism. Is cancer contagious? The scientific experiments made in the Institute for Experimental Medicine of Argentina were conclusive. The scientists placed sick rats and healthy rats in the same cage. Unquestionably, they did not discover any type of contagion. Rats of different sexes have been placed within such properly controlled experiments and have been found without contagion. It has been stated in the scientific world that rats that were fed with cancerous tumors did not become infected. They affirm that rats that were injected with the blood of a sick animal remained immune, without contagion. Can any type of wound cause cancer? This type of question has an extraordinary importance, from the civil point of view and from the legal point of view, because of the claims that could be made for compensation of work accidents. These claims could be attributed as causes of cancer that any given employee can acquire from a work injury. It is obvious that little wounds frequently repeated in the same place can be the cause of this terrible Sickness. Yet, only one wound, even when this is a strong wound, is a decisive no. For this intelligent scientific conclusion, what was taken into account were the bullet wounds that were produced during the First World War of 1914 to 1918. Is cancer produced by a germ? Official science affirms no, it is not. They emphasize the concept that this frightful sickness is not caused by any type of microbe or germ. Revolutionary, scientific Gnosticism permits itself, with all respect, the liberty of disagreement. We, the Gnostics, affirm the existence of the cancro, the microbe or germ of cancer. Is cancer transmittable? It is obvious that the official science, after many experiments, answers with a categorical no. Nevertheless, exceptions exist. For example, cancer was inoculated into a rat which was nourished with a diet poor in copper and low in catalase. The result was positive. The rat became infected. It is indubitable that when this experiment has been repeated, the same results have been obtained. In an opposite experiment, cancer was inoculated into a rat which had been previously prepared with a diet very rich in copper and catalase. The result was negative. The rat was not infected. Official science has discovered that hydrogen peroxide, oxygenated water, particularly increases the catalase and protects against the undesirable development of cancer. We understand that the germ of cancer, the terrible cancro, is developed in organisms that are poor in copper and catalase. It is unquestionable that the cancro cannot be seen, not even through the most potent electron microscopes. However, if this dreadful sickness can be transmitted to organisms which are poor in copper and catalase, then it is obvious that such a microbe exists. The germ of cancer develops and unfolds within the fourth dimension. It only allows itself to be observed in the tridimensional world through its destructive effects. It is indubitable that in the future the most powerful electron microscope will be invented. Then, the cancro will be perceptible for the ultramodern scientists. It is obvious that this fatal germ arrives to the planet Earth submerged within the electromagnetic currents from the constellation of Cancer. By all means, Cancer is the karma of fornication. It is obvious that ancient wise men knew in depth this very special type of nemesis. Here in Mexico, a very special plant exists that can cure cancer. I want to emphatically refer to a certain bush plant which is known in the region of Ixmiquilpan, state of Hidalgo. The name of this bush plant is Aranto. Ancient Aboriginal people baptized this plant with the indigenous name of Alaga. The complete data, which is delivered by our beloved Gnostic brother Alfonso Silva, is very interesting. Mr. Mario Aponte, chief of the office of the former Electric Force and Light Company from the Mexican Republic, Mixquiahuala, Hidalgo, was attacked by a sickness in his gums. It is obvious that he did not acknowledge it. He then traveled to Mexico City with the good purpose of consulting the physicians from the Electricians' Union. They diagnosed him with cancer of the mouth. Unsatisfied with such a diagnosis, the mentioned gentleman consulted other doctors. However, the diagnosis given by all of them was the same. Mr. Aponte returned to Mixquiahuala very afflicted. Obviously, he could not remain absent from his office for a long time. This sighted gentleman narrated that a little old lady from that place made the agreement of healing him with a vegetal tea, which she, herself, would give him to drink in his presence. This was because she feared the patient would not drink the remedy by himself. The results were extraordinary. In a period of 8 months, Mr. Aponte was radically cured. He continued drinking the tea of this old lady. It was not necessary for her to give him the tea or to beg him to drink it, because the sighted man was asking for it daily. 1 month later, the doctors from Mexico City, with astonishment, had to acknowledge that the cancer had disappeared. The Gnostic brother Alfonso Silva continued by saying, "To this date, from the people who I had offered the Aranto, or Alaga, I remember the name of Mrs. Luisa Lara de Barreda, who is my sister-in-law. She was close to being operated on within the Social Security Institute for a cancerous tumor. It was the type of tumor in the womb, something very grave. This sick woman became radically healed by drinking infusions of Aranto, and until this date she lives totally cured. Thus, our Frater Silva continues by telling us, Mr. Agustin Uribe's spouse, we do not wish to reveal her address, was prepared by the physicians with the purpose of extracting a tumor from her liver. Yet, when they evidenced that this was a cancerous tumor, they immediately stitched her up at once, obviously declaring her a lost case. There was no chance for her, since the doctors found her abdominal cavity filled with cancerous tumors. However, this sick woman was definitively healed with the Aranto and still lives, thanks to the astonishing virtues of this bush plant. The distinguished physician, Doctor of Medicine Jacinto Juarez Parra from the National University of Mexico, tested the power of this bush plant on a cancerous, terminally ill woman, already without hope. In this case, indeed, it was very difficult and it was not possible to save the life of this sick woman. I think that when the organism is already totally destroyed because of this sickness, every remedy fails. Dr. Juarez considers that research with the electron microscope can and must be performed on this whole plant. By centrifugation, the nucleus, the lysosomes, the ribosomes, and the microsomes must be separated in order to make a spectrophotometric analysis of each one of the parts of this plant. This would be for the intelligent purpose of discovering its colloids, enzymes, and its print element or oligo element. It must be investigated, says Dr. Juarez, to see which intracellular portions of this cited plant effectively act over the cancer. The mentioned physician continues saying that every cancerous patient who is diagnosed through stimulating cytology and biopsy will be medicated with the Aranto, as well as dosages of catalase and copper, and later he will again make another measurement with the diagnostic data. Catalase and copper are low in cancerous people, and this is already completely demonstrated. It is necessary to investigate the amount of sanguineous catalase and the dosage of copper in the plasma. Any organism poor in catalase and copper is a proper field for the complete development of the dreadful cancro. Chapter 39. The Triple Dominion of Seth. Lo and behold, that the white shining eye of Horus cometh. The brilliant eye of Horus as a mystic lookout cometh. It harmoniously cometh in peace, it sendeth forth rays of light as Ra, the intimate Logoi, in the horizon, and, thanks to meditation and with the help of the sacred snake, it destroyeth the triple power of Seth, the ego, according to the decree. It leadeth him on, and it taketh possession of him, towards the infernal worlds, and the flames of this divine eye are kindled against him. May I bring adoration unto its regenerator flame, my Divine Mother Kundalini, that cometh and goeth about. She has the power of eliminating all of those perverse entities or screaming quarrelsome egos that constitute the ego. It cometh and goeth about heaven encircling Ra, the intimate Logoi, and mocketh him reign upon the divine ordering. O Ra, verily, the divine eye of Horus liveth, yea liveth within the sanctuary of the great temple, the divine eye of Horus liveth, yea liveth, and its esoteric name is On Mahadef, the Book of the Dead. It is unquestionable that the multiple tenebrous entities which personify our psychological defects constitute the ego, Seth. Therefore, the triple power of Seth is clear, obvious, and manifest. It is obvious that the red demons, eyes or tenebrous entities, of Seth, express themselves through our body of desires, Judas, through our mental animal vehicle, Pilate, and through our bestial will, Caiaphas. We already stated in former chapters and now we repeat in this one again that the intellectual animals mistakenly called human beings still do not possess the authentic astral, mental, and causal vehicles. It is very painful to have to emphatically affirm that instead of these mentioned solar vehicles, these wretched rational homunculi, indeed, only have 3 perverse demons within. These are the 3 wicked friends of Job. It is obvious that this perverse race of Adam is 100% diabolic. It is unquestionable that these wretched people do not have their being incarnated. My words might seem severe to many readers, however, we must not hide the truth. How difficult it is to build the glorious bodies of Kamuar. These Christic vehicles can only be created in the flaming forge of Vulcan. The nativity of the heart, the incarnation of the being within ourselves, is only possible if we dress ourselves with the garments of Osiris, the solar bodies. Nonetheless, I tell you, woe unto those who after having reached the second birth continue alive. Those ones, O God, will convert themselves as a fact into Hasnamussen, abortions of the Divine Mother Kundalini, with a double center of gravity. It is obvious that the being dressed with the wedding garment of the soul, to Soma Heliacon, constitutes in himself an ineffable and terrifically divine solar entity. It is obvious that Seth, dressed with the triple tenebrous aspect of the lunar bodies, assumes the undesirable form of a lunar, abominable black magician. For instance, when one invokes the Hasnamus Andromlech, then either the white master or the black master can concur to the invocation. Nevertheless, both personages are the same individual. Therefore, after the second birth, which the great Kabir Jesus talked about unto the great Rabbi Nicodemus, one finds oneself between two paths, the right-hand path and the sinister path. It is evident, clear, and manifest that the left-hand path is the path of the Hasnamussen. This word is plural. The singular pronunciation is Hasnamus. This order of concomitances invites us to think in the inevitable urgency for a radical and definitive moral asepsis from the very beginning. Such intimate asepsis is achieved by reducing into cosmic dust all of those red devils or tenebrous egos that express themselves within ourselves through the three wicked friends of Job. As a sequence, we can emphasize the irrefutable idea that to intend the radical elimination of the three traitors of Hiram Abiff, without the previous death of the pluralized I, Seth, would be an absurdity. Indeed, and by all means, it is easy to understand that each psychological defect is found personified in some tenebrous form. Buddha taught that the ego is constituted by a sum of psychological aggregates, devil egos. Such aggregates are perishable. The unique thing that within ourselves assumes transcendental aspects of everlastingness is our innermost Buddha. Unfortunately, this wretched humanity does not have him incarnated. This secret Buddha is so distinct from our body, our mind, and our most intimate affections, as oil is to water, as day is to night, as winter is to summer. It is frightful to know that the secret Buddha is the judge of ourselves, of our own affections, sentiments, thoughts, desires, loves, passions, etc., etc., etc. That my being is the judge of myself? This is terrible, yet it is true. Therefore, by no means does my interior Buddha want me to exist. He wants my radical death. How beautiful it is to die from moment to moment. What is new arrives only with death. The secret Buddha becomes our best friend only after the death of Seth, the ego. The reason for the being to be is to be the being himself. Chapter 40. Return and Reincarnation. Behold, I am here in peril, in front of the grave of the General Pancho Villa. I call with a great voice, I invoke, I beckon. The sails palpitate, shaken by the nocturnal breeze, as the wings of birds in flight, and the air upon the face of the gusting whirl minutely wrinkles the blue silk, a silken yarn of crystal stamens. Then, someone terrible from within the profundity of the black sepulchre answers. It is the phantom of the noble general. He upbraids me with severe words. His ex-personality gets up, he recognizes me, because I was also in the division of the North. I enrolled with my people in his army. Then, I exclaim, go back now into your sepulchre. Thus, that shadow returned into the sepulchral fossa. Later on, I visited some other pantheons. I invoked my ancient comrades of battle. Thus, they came unto my call, dispersing races and trampling upon centuries. Amazingly, the laws of time were girding each soul to its tomb, who with a lugubrious howling was shouting, here I am. Thus, O God of mine. From within every sepulchre was emerging, as by dint of magic, some of my comrades who died on the field of battle. All of them recognized me. I conversed with all of them. Then after, each one of them returned into his sepulchral fossa. After all of this, I remained meditative. What do the pseudo-esotericists know about this? What do the pseudo-occultists say about this theme? It is obvious that three things go into the sepulchre: the physical body, the vital depth of it, and the personality that slowly dissolves. It is unquestionable that not all goes into the sepulchre. There is something that continues beyond. I am referring to Seth, the ego, the myself. By no means do we exaggerate if we emphasize the correct idea that what survives is a bunch of devils' egos. It is obvious that a psychic essence exists within ourselves. Unfortunately, it is bottled up within all of those devil egos. Such devil egos commonly concur to the spiritualist centers. They then penetrate into the bodies of the mediums and identify themselves. The world gains nothing with those mediumistic, tenebrous experiments. The karma for such mediumistic people is epilepsy in their subsequent lives. Seth, the pluralized I, does not reincarnate. Seth, the pluralized I, only comes back, returns, or reincorporates himself within new physical organisms, that is all. The word reincarnation is very demanding. The doctrine of Krishna teaches that only the gods, devas, divine kings, demigods, etc., reincarnate. Unfortunately, in the Western world, this term has been abundantly abused. In ancient times, in Tibet, the reincarnations were celebrated with great festivities. We need to die from moment to moment if indeed what we want is to individualize ourselves. The pluralized I excludes any type of individuality. By no means can individuality exist where there is the coexistence of multiple entities, egos, who quarrel amongst themselves and who originate within ourselves various psychological contradictions. Therefore, reincarnation is only for sacred individuals. When Seth dies in an integral way, then only the being remains within ourselves. The being is the one who gives us authentic individuality. When Seth is disintegrated in a total way, then the consciousness, the soul, is liberated and becomes radically awakened. Thus, the interior illumination arrives. It is obvious that much later, we must attain the upper individuality, if indeed what we aspire to is the final liberation. In proportion, as we elevate ourselves throughout the marvelous gradation of this complete revolutionary development, we then become completely aware of the fact that in the previous levels that we were working in, we almost always committed the mistake of confounding the shadows with the realities. When we have achieved the final liberation, throughout many deaths and renunciations, each time more and more terrific, then, any Mayavic veil will cease to exist for ourselves. Chapter 41. The Akashic Records. Any deductive or inductive logical system invites us to comprehend that the whole history of the earth and of its root races could not have been lost. The Hindu sages frequently state in their books to us about that which we can indeed denominate Akash, the Kausa Kazoram of the ether of science. This Akashic substance is the same omnipresent and omnipenetrating Okidnak, which fills the whole infinite space. All of the cosmic concentrations from the infinite space are the mathematical outcome of the multiple crystallizations of the omnipresent Okidnak. It is written within old archaic documents that when the human beings were still in possession of that sight which is called Oluestisgnana vision, the open eye of Dangma, then they could correctly perceive all of the cosmic concentrations from starry space. Hence, the human beings knew how to read the Akashic records of nature. In those foregone times, nobody ignored the memories of creation. However, when the human beings abused sex, when they ate from the tree of the science of good and evil, their terrestrial visual organ progressively degenerated, thus converting them into that which is called a common and current Kortesnokniano, one who has eyes that only see the tridimensional world of Euclid. Nevertheless, upon the face of the earth there still exist some Mahatmas who can study the memories of nature within the records of the omnipresent Okidnak. Any event leaves its living photograph within the Akash. It is obvious that all of our former lives are within those mysterious cosmic records. Electronics is advancing marvelously in these modern times. Thus, what we need now is a special device in order to capture the vibratory waves from the past. When such a device is invented, then we will see and hear on the televised screen the whole history of the uncountable centuries. This is how the Akashic records will inexorably fall into the hands of the scientists. It has been stated unto us that the FBI of the USA presently possesses a very special photographic camera, with which they can register on very sensible films homicides which were perpetuated many hours or days before they were announced to the authorities. In other words, it is inferred that if the agents of the law arrived at the place of the crime, they can photograph said crime with such a camera, even if this has been committed many hours or days before. Such revolutionary cameras work with infrared rays and an absolute void. We have been informed that the cooling process of its extremely fine lenses reaches the temperature of 15 to 20 degrees below zero. This signifies that the Akashic records of nature are now beginning to fall into the hands of modern sages. It is obvious that if photographs related with past events are now being taken, then in a little while movies of this type could be filmed. This is how in this new Aquarian age, the men of science will have to recognize the esoteric and occultist affirmations. Chapter 42. Lucifer. We have arrived in this present 1969 to 1970 Christmas message to a very thorny problem. I am emphatically referring to Lucifer Venus, unto whom Isaiah 14 verse 12 offered that ineffable chant of pure mysticism as follows. How art thou fallen from heaven, O shining star, son of the morning, thou who looketh so brilliant at dawning? How can we indeed comprehend the profound mystery of the rebellion in heaven if we do not rend the veil which covers the Luciferian mysteries? Let us remember the 7 children of inertia from the Egyptian mysteries who were thrown out from Amsmen, or paradise. Let us not forget, beloved reader, the 7 kings of the Babylonian legend of creation, the 7 monarchs of the Book of Revelation, the 7 chroniclers or vigilantes from heaven, stars who disobeyed the commands of God, therefore they were tossed out of heaven. So, what can we say about the 7 constellations that the Book of Enoch refers to? Oh, God of mine! These ones were lain aside as the 7 refulgent mountains upon which the Scarlet Dame is seated. It is written in the Akashic records of nature that a third of the resplendent host, who are named Dhyanis or Arupa, frightfully fell into animal generation. The degradation of gods into demons is not an exclusive myth of Christianity. Likewise, this has occurred with Zoroastrianism and Brahmanism and even with Chaldean esotericism. That the angels of light, Asuras, or Ahuras, breaths or blowing of the Supreme Spirit, became demons. Why should this be doubted? Is this perhaps a rare thing? Any sacred individual can convert himself into a demon if he falls into animal generation. It is unquestionable that the 3 traitors, Judas, Pilate, and Caiaphas, are reborn inside any sacred individual when such a one falls into bestial generation. It is pathetic, clear, and manifest that the pluralized I, Seth, can resurrect like the phoenix bird from within its own ashes. Therefore, the theogonies are not mistaken when depicting those divine logoi as punished for having committed the error of falling into sexual generation after the separation of the Lemurian root race into opposite sexes. That they sacrificed themselves as Prometheus in order to endow the human being of that primeval infantile paradise with a conscious spirit? Mendacity. Ignorance. Absurdity. I was a spectator and actor at the same time of the genesis of life. Therefore, in the name of truth, I tell you that there was not such a sacrifice. We, the Lemurians, enjoyed sexual copulation. We fell into bestial generation because of pleasure. It is obvious that this unusual and unexpected affirmation will cause a sound note of amazement onto many readers. However, if the readers know of the doctrine of reincarnation, then they should not become amazed. That a human being was reincarnated in Lemuria? That he remembers his past lives? That he can give an archaic testimony? Well, this is normal. This is neither something rare nor strange. Let us now go a little bit deeper. Gods and devas, ineffable pitris and demigods, were reincarnated in Lemuria. That those divine logoi, that those rebel angels endowed this wretched intellectual homunculi, mistakenly called human beings, with a mental body? It is false, a lie. The wretched rational animal, instead of receiving as inheritance the authentic mental body, the unique thing that he received was Pilate, the demon high of the Egyptian mysteries. The rational animal has not incarnated his spirit because he has not yet built his solar bodies in the forge of the Cyclops. The wretched tri-brained or tri-centered biped, erroneously qualified as human, is unconscious and ignorant. In the name of truth and at any cost, I see myself in the necessity of affirming that I also was a fallen archangel. Therefore, I have complete cognition of what I am writing in this message. I am not repeating somebody's theories, I affirm what I know. I repented of my errors, I rose up from the mud of the earth. Now I give testimony of these things. This wretched humanity gained nothing with the rebellion of the angels of heaven. It would have been better to have known how to obey the Father. The pseudo-esotericists and pseudo-occultists could object that after the human division into opposite sexes, sexual cooperation for the reproduction of the species was indispensable. This objection is not valuable for the gods. It is unquestionable that the men gods from Lemuria could have preserved their physical bodies throughout millions of years by means of the elixir of longevity of the alchemists. The following is for the acknowledgement of our readers. In some secret places of the world, immortal Lemurians still live. My holy guru, whose sacred name I must not mention, still preserves the same physical body that he had in Lemuria. It is obvious that I, particularly after the downfall in Lemuria, repented myself and returned into the mysteries of that ancient continent. Then, I received the elixir of long life. In the name of that which is the reality, the Tao, the divine, I tell you that I lived with an immortal physical body for millions of years. Disobedience was not indispensable for the multiplication of the human species. It is obvious that such a rebellion was an insentient action. The men angels of the continent Mu could have donated their physical vehicles to the souls of the earth who were coming from the superior animal kingdoms without the necessity of violating the law. It is unquestionable that all the people who live upon the face of the earth are children of Adam and Eve, the original couple, the Lemurian root race, who fell in the Luciferian sin of lust. It is indubitable that the wretched people continue in the original Luciferian sexual sin. We are children of lust and we continue with lust. This is obvious, it stands out to the naked eye. That which is divine cannot be lustful. Therefore, we are not children of God, but of the devil. Let us remember the words of Christ when he stated, I speak that which I have seen with my Father, and ye do that which ye have seen with your father. They answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Jesus saith unto them, If ye were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of God, this did not Abraham. Ye do the deeds of your father. Then said they to him, We be not born of fornication, we have one Father, even God. Jesus said unto them, If God were your Father, ye would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God, neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do ye not understand my speech? Even because ye cannot hear my word. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar, and the father of it. And because I tell you the truth, ye believe me not. Which of you convinceth me of sin? And if I say the truth, why do ye not believe me? He that is of God heareth God's words, ye therefore hear them not, because ye are not of God. John 8 verses 38-46. Two basic fires exist within the human being and within nature. The first is the fire of Maha Kundalini. The second is the fire of Lucifer Venus. It is obvious that the first is a divine fire. It is unquestionable that the second is a diabolic, passional, lustful fire. Much has been stated about Agni, the god of fire, Daksha, the universal father of every force. Evidently, knowledge, as the supreme force for Zoroastrians, magicians, and alchemists, is the beginning of all forces. It is evident that we must search for such a supreme force within the central sun, which without any doubt is the most elevated among the four celestial suns. The last one among them is our physical sun, which is the original fountain of the sidereal light or astral light of Paracelsus and the Hermetic ones. If physically this force is the ether, In its more sublime spiritual sense that is related with the anima mundi, it is the origin of the stars that are crystic granulated fire. By confronting fires, inquiring, investigating, we discover with astonishment a notable igneous antithesis of a submerged lunar type. I want to refer to Lucifer, the tempting serpent of Eden, that fatal phohatic force that when developed within the human being converts itself, as a fact and by its own right, into the abominable Kundabuffer organ, the tail of Satan. We can infer with all of this without the fear of being mistaken that Seth, the pluralized I, as well as the three wicked friends of Job, are vile granulations of the lunar Luciferian fire within the atomic infernos of the human being. It is obvious that the original human couple, the Lemurian root race, was the fatal sexual victim of the Luciferian serpent. The rebellion in heaven and the consequent downfall of angels is 100% a sexual problem. Lucifer, that vile worm who passes through the heart of the world, abides, as it is natural, in the depth of any organic or inorganic matter. This lunar Luciferian fohat exercises direct control upon a certain malignant atom in the coccyx, sexual organs, heart, and brain. This malignant Luciferian sexual impulse controls even our most intimate feelings. It is indubitable that this blind fohatic force of a Luciferian lunar type has hypnotized the whole humanity, submerged it into the unconsciousness. It is easy to comprehend that when this Luciferian fire crystallizes in the entire legion of devil egos that every one carries inside, the outcome is the unconsciousness. It is obvious that our consciousness sleeps within all of those tenebrous entities that constitute the ego. This is how the Luciferian hypnotic process is developed inside each subject who lives upon the face of the earth. The intellectual animal mistakenly called human being is 99% Luciferian. If it was not for the psychic essence that is bottled up within the ego, then the rational homunculi would be 100% Luciferian. Therefore, we must start from zero and recognize that we are demons, if indeed what we want is to reach the inner self-realization of the being. First of all, we must eliminate the secret Pharisee from our interior nature. Let us remember the words of Jesus, "But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven, with all of those theories which you have, against men, for ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in." Matthew 23 verse 13. Ye blind guides, who are not illuminated, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full extortion and excess. Matthew 23 verses 24 to 25. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Fanatic Puritans who commit crimes and thereafter wash their hands, for ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, filled with fake humbleness and with sublime pietistic postures, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, and you even self-cheat yourselves by believing yourselves to be good and holy, but within, even if you will never believe it, indeed, ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. Matthew 23 verses 27 to 28. The Master G commits the mistake of confounding the Kundalini with the Luciferian fire of the abominable Kundabuffer organ. He, Master G, even grants unto the Kundalini all of the sinister aspects of the Kundabuffer. It is obvious that we need to comprehend and to eliminate. This is already stated in previous chapters. It is obvious that the Kundalini, the igneous serpent of our magical powers, is a terribly divine Vedantic and Jehovistic truth. The ascending fire of Kundalini victoriously opens, within the dorsal spine of the human being, the 7 seals of the Apocalypse of St. John. Devi Kundalini, our divine adorable mother, is the ascending serpent of the spinal midollar canal. She, the divine snake, has the power to eliminate the red demons of Seth. The sacred viper can destroy the crystallizations or granulations of the Luciferian serpent. Therefore, we are before the 2 serpents. The first one victoriously ascends throughout the spinal canal of the human organism. The second one descends, It precipitates itself from the coccyx downwards towards the atomic infernos of the human being. The first one is the serpent of bronze that healed the Israelites in the wilderness. The second one is the tempting serpent of Eden, Lucifer, the horrible python snake that is writhing in the mud of the earth and that Apollo furiously hurts with his darts. Very interesting reminiscences come into my memory in these moments. One certain delectable night, it does not matter which one, while being in that Zen state known as Satori or Samadhi, ecstasy, I joyfully entered through the doors of the temple upon the wings of longing. Thus, as many other seated adepts, I also sat and listened to the delectable chants. What those golden voices uttered profoundly touched even the most intimate fibers of my soul. All of us were then praising the Emperor, that divine monad of every one, who before the dawning of the Mahamanvantara was moving upon the chaotic waters of the infinite space. The spiral, snail-shell-shaped stairs conduced upwards to the high floor of the temple. It is obvious that such a spiral ladder ended exactly at the foot of the sacred altar of the Emperor. The sacrarium was gloriously shining upon the most sacred altar, and the fire was burning within its lamp. Some flower pots were marvelously completing such a precious enchantment. It is obvious that the flowers always endow a certain exquisite something, wherever they are. Nonetheless, there was something more, something unusual, a strange set of figures skillfully carved in wood. Such figures were exactly placed in front of the altar, upon that mysterious, divine ladder. It represented, as a fact, a serious inconvenience, a tremendous obstacle in order to arrive in front of the interior Lord. I, then in fight against the third traitor of Hiram Abiff, had to profoundly study the symbolism of those hieratic figures of mystery. They were a variegated and painteresque conjunction of strange wooden beings upon the polished steps of the holy ladder. To concentrate my attention upon such artistic representations was indispensable. The royal art of nature is nothing dead, it has life, abundant life. Let us remember those living pictures seen by Franz Hartmann inside the Gnostic Rosicrucian Temple of Bohemia, Germany. Hartmann, when concentrating his attention upon a Tibetan representation, could see a Mahatma, who was riding his vigorous stallion. The Mahatma saluted him from afar, and while smiling, he rode away. This is what the royal art from the White Brotherhood is, something which has life, something precious. Therefore, the attentive reader should by no means be surprised if I tell him that when I concentrated my attention upon such very finely carved exotic figures, they came to life. Even if this seems incredible, since everything is possible in the unknown dimension, when seeing them, I beheld something unusual. In a certainly unexpected way, one of those figures suddenly freed itself. It had the appearance of an elder dressed in an exotic way. The voice of the silence informed me that it was related with the Lord of Time. I was instructed that I must eliminate the useless refuse of the past. I understood everything. Thus, the elder walked holding in his dexterous hand a strange container, filled with garbage. I comprehended in depth the deep significance of such an allegory. The filthy reminiscences of the past, the garbage of many yesterdays, must be forgotten. The elder dug a sepulchral fossa in the pantheon of the dead. Then, he buried the useless debris there. It is unquestionable that thereafter, when his symbolic labor was accomplished, the elder returned to his place. Afterwards, another figure detached itself from that strange set. I was instructed that it was Lucifer, who works in time. It was indicated to me that Lucifer achieves the resurrection of the dead egos by means of memories. Thus, I saw Lucifer walking among the sepulchres of time. He searches for the buried egos within the dust of the centuries. He wants to turn them to life again. I contemplated him in absorption. How sly Lucifer is! He awakens lustful, sinful memories within oneself, so that the dead egos can resurrect. Then, I comprehended in depth the necessity of living from instant to instant, from moment to moment. Alas, O God of mine! The I is time. Yes. 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 However, the being is non-temporal. He is that which is always new. Once this other illustration finished, the Luciferian figure returned to his mysterious place. Then, I concentrated my attention in a most intense way. Thus, I saw something that stood out. It was a fatal flame. It was clear that such a sinister fire assumes a terrible, masculine form. The voice of the silence told me that Lucifer controls the three traitors of Hiram Abiff and the remnants of the ego after his final disintegration. This is how I did understand it. So, I approached Lucifer and I told him that I was his friend. He then laughed at me, and by talking he addressed me and made me to understand that I was his enemy. It is obvious that this diabolic fire did not make a mistake concerning his remarks. Incredible. Even after the I has died, Lucifer continues controlling even the seeds of the ego. What a horror. Remember, dear reader, that the I can also resurrect as the phoenix bird from within its own ashes. Therefore, the rebellion in the heavens was a very complex process of the resurrection of the ego and of the three wicked friends of Job within each sacred individual. It is obvious that the Luciferian fire originated this special type of diabolical resurrection within the psyche of every man-angel of the continent Mu. It is obvious that the men-angels, with the resurrection of the ego and the reviving of the three traitors, converted themselves into authentic demons. In the preceding Mahamanvantara of Padma, or Lotus of Gold, these ineffable ones from this rebellion had already eliminated Seth and the three traitors. Unfortunately, Lucifer works in time. It is unquestionable that the lunar Luciferian fire has the power of resuscitating Judas, Pilate, and Caiaphas. It is certain that Lucifer Mara, the sexual tempter, can call to life all of those red demons from ancient times, all of those devil's egos of Seth. Chapter 43. Darkness. Ancient wisdom states that darkness is in itself Father-Mother, and light is its child. It is evident that the uncreated light has an unknowable origin, which is absolutely unknowable to us. In no way do we exaggerate if we emphasize the idea that the origin of the uncreated light is darkness. The cosmos emerges from the chaos, and light sprouts from darkness. Let us profoundly pray. Let us now talk about the borrowed, secondary, cosmic light. It is obvious that whatever its origin might be, and whatever its beauty might be, it has in its depth a temporary maic character. Then, the profound, ineffable darkness constitutes the eternal womb, in which the origins of light appear and disappear. It is unquestionable that in this, our afflicted world of samsara, nothing is added to the darkness in order to convert it into light. It is clear that in this valley of bitterness, nothing is added to light in order to transform it into darkness. The logic of thought, or better if we say the tertium organum, invites us to think that light and darkness are interchangeable. Analyzing this from a rigorously scientific point of view, we arrive at the conclusion that light is only a mode of darkness, and vice versa. Light and darkness are two phenomena of the same noumenon, which is unknowable, profound, and inconceivable to the reasoning. The fact of perceiving more or less light that shines within the darkness is a matter that depends on our power of spiritual vision. A great being stated, "What is light for us is darkness for certain insects, and the spiritual eye sees illumination where the normal eye can only see obscurity." After the Mahamanvantara, the universe immersed into a pralaya, dissolved within its primordial element, necessarily reposed within the profound darkness of the infinite space. It is urgent to deeply comprehend the profound mystery of the chaotic darkness. It is written with characters of unmistakable fire in the book of the great life that at the end of the Mahamanvantara, cosmic day, Osiris, the father Isis, the Divine Mother Kundalini, and Horus, the Divine Spirit, are integrated, mixed, and fused like three fires, in order to make one single flame. It is obvious, and any Mahatma knows, that during the Mahapralaya, cosmic night, the whole dissolved universe lies within the unique, eternal, and primary cause, in order to be reborn again in the following dawning of the new great cosmic day, as is periodically done by Karana, the eternal cause. Let us search for Osiris, Isis, and Horus within ourselves, within the unknowable profundities of our own being. It is obvious that Osiris, Isis, and Horus constitute in themselves the monad, the duad, and the triad of our innermost being. Did you ever hear about Brahma? He is in himself Father, Mother, Son, Osiris, Isis, Horus. In each new cosmic dawning, the universe resurrects. Like the phoenix bird from within its own ashes. In the dawning of each Mahamanvantara, the monad unfolds again into the duad and into the triad. At the daybreak of the new cosmic day, after the profound night, the sun, the triad, Horus, the divine spirit within each one of us, emanates the essence, his mystic principles, from himself into the wheel of samsara, with the purpose of acquiring a diamond soul. Ah! How great the joy of Horus is when acquiring a diamond soul! Then, he is absorbed within his Divine Mother, and she is also fused with the Father, who together form a unique diamond flame, a god of resplendent, interior beauty. Chapter 44. Substances, Atoms, Forces. The Master Ji, when speaking about substances and forces, stated, proceeding again with the law of three, we must learn how to find the manifestations of this law in everything we do and in everything we study. When this law is applied through any way or through any act, we will see that it reveals many new things to us, many things which formerly we did not see. Let us take chemistry for an example. Ordinary chemistry does not know of the law of Trinity. Therefore, it studies the matter without taking into account its cosmic properties. However, another chemistry apart from the ordinary one exists. This is a special chemistry that we can call alchemy, which is a chemistry that studies matter by taking into account its cosmic properties. As it was previously indicated, the cosmic properties of every substance are firstly determined by the place that this substance occupies and, secondly, by the force that acts through it in a given moment. Still, the nature of any given substance, though occupying the very same place, can suffer a great change. This change depends on the force that is manifesting itself through it. Each substance can be the conductor of the three forces, first, second, and third logos. Thus, in accordance with this, the substance can be active, passive, or neutral. In the case when none of the three forces manifest themselves through the substance at any given moment, or better, if the substance is taken without any relation to the manifestation of the three forces, then the substance can neither be active, passive, nor neutral. Accordingly, the substance then appears in this way, in other words, in four aspects or different states. It is necessary, in this sense, to specifically take into account that when we refer to matter, we are not referring to chemical elements. This special chemistry that we are dealing with sees a separated function in each substance, even in the most complex substance. It sees the substance as an element. This is the only way in which the study of the cosmic properties of matter can be done, because all of the complex compounds have their own finality and cosmic purposes. If this question is seen from this point of view, then we see that the atom of any given substance is nothing else than the smallest quantity of such substance, which retains all of its chemical, physical, and cosmic properties. Consequently, the size of the atoms in different substances is not always the same. Thus, in some cases, an atom could be a visible particle even to the physical eye. The four aspects or states of every substance have precise names. When a substance is the conductor of the first force or active force, it is called carbon. Thus, it is designated with the letter C, as in the carbon of chemistry. When a substance is the conductor of the second force or passive force, it is called oxygen. Hence, it is designated with the letter O, as in the oxygen of chemistry. When a substance is the conductor of the third force or neutral force, it is called nitrogen, and it is designated with the letter N, as in the nitrogen of chemistry. When the substance is taken without a relation with the force that manifests through it, it is called hydrogen. Therefore, it is designated with the letter H, as in the hydrogen of chemistry. The active, passive, and neutral forces are designed with the numbers 1, 2, 3, and the substances with the letters C, O, N, H. It is indispensable to understand these denominations. Peter Ouspensky stated, one of us asked, do these elements correspond to the four elements of alchemy, fire, air, water, and earth? G answered, yes, effectively, they correspond to them. However, we will utilize these ones, C-O-N-H. Soon you will understand the reason why. Well, here we finish with Master G's quotation. Now, let us go deeply into this alchemical formulary. We already stated in our former 1968 to 1969 Christmas message about the Ein Sof or super divine atom that abides within the unknowable profundities of our own being. In the final synthesis, each one of us is nothing more than an atom from the abstract absolute space, which is the interior atomic star that has always smiled upon us. A certain author has said, "I raise my eyes towards the utmost, towards the stars, from which, for me, all help has to come, but I always follow the inner star which guides my interior." We must make a specific differentiation between the Ahin Sof and the Ahin Sof Paranishpana. In the Ahin Sof, interior self-realization does not exist, but in the Ein Sof Paranishpana, realization of the innermost self does exist. Any Mahatma knows very well that before entering into the Absolute, the solar bodies must be dissolved. It is obvious that 4 atom seeds remain from these Christic vehicles. It is indubitable that such atom seeds correspond to the physical, astral, mental, and causal bodies. It is obvious that the 4 atom seeds are absorbed within the super divine atom, the Ahin Sof Paranishpana, along with the essence, spiritual principles, laws, and the 3 primary forces. Afterwards, the profound night of the Mahapralaya arrives. The Ahin Sof, without intimate self-realization, does not possess the 4 atom seeds. It is just a simple atom of the abstract absolute space. That is all. In alchemy, the letter C symbolizes the conscious body of willpower. It is the carbon of occult chemistry. In alchemy, the letter O symbolizes the solar mental body that was built in the forge of the Cyclops, the oxygen of sacred chemistry. In alchemy, the letter N symbolizes the authentic solar astral body, which is very different from the body of desires. It is obvious that the legitimate sidereal body is the nitrogen of occult chemistry. In alchemy, the H symbolizes the physical body, the 3-dimensional vehicle of flesh and bones. We do not exaggerate if we emphasize the alchemist's transcendental idea that an Ahin Sof Paranishpana atom possesses within itself the 4 atom seeds, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen. With these 4 alchemical atoms, the Ein Sof Paranishpana rebuilds the Merkaba, the chariot, the solar bodies, in order to enter into any universe when it is necessary. Let us not forget that Merkaba is the chariot of the centuries, the heavenly human being of the Kabbalah. As a sequence or corollary, we can, and we must affirm that those who have not performed the work in the 9th sphere, the sex, certainly do not possess the chariot, the Merkaba. It is unquestionable that everything changes in the active field of the Prakriti, due to the modifications of the Trigunamaya Shakti, and that we, the human beings, also modify ourselves in a positive or negative way. But if we do not build the chariot, the Merkaba, the Ahin Sof remains without realization of the innermost self. Those who have not eliminated the Abhayan Samskara, the innate fear, will flee from the 9th sphere by telling to others that the work in the forge of the Cyclops, sex, is worthless. These are the hypocritical Pharisees who strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. These are the failed ones who neither go into the kingdom themselves, neither suffer they those who are entering to go in. Indeed, sex is a stumbling rock and a rock of offense. Chapter 45. Pratamoksha. We start this chapter with a beautiful poem from Don Ramon del Valle Inclán. Gnostic Rose. Nothing can be that has not formerly been. Nothing can be that shall not become tomorrow. Eternal all instants are and have been. As the grain which the clock scrapes with sorrow. Eternal is the rose's grace. As the earliest skylark that announces the morning. As the caterpillar, whose flower the butterfly did brace. Eternal is, within my conscience, my guilt's mourning. Reclined at the verge of the way, coated with rime, is the worm which germinates in mud as swine. This is how I sense the black anguish of my crime. As an aspiration to the whole divine. The Gnostic mystery is present in the quiet soaring of the dove. and the sin of the world and the tempting serpent, which bites the foot of the angel who subdues it with love. Upon the eternal nights of a foregone time, the eternal nights of tomorrow open, they grapple. Each hour a larvae of crime, and the symbol of the serpent and the apple. Time keeps the enigma of form, as a dragon which keeps vigil upon the worlds, so that the whole in unity, supreme norm, can weave from its steel the infinite worlds. Nothing turns off the flame of the crucible, for sealed in its bottom is, as eternal flaming rage, the idea of Plato. Suns, distant and invisible, one day shall illuminate our hermitage, while my shroud the parka spins. On my forehead, a cross of ashes, I represent. Time is woodworm's dust, pains. Through Satan. Yet, God is the present. Everything is eternity. Everything happened already. Thus everything which is now, shall be tomorrow. In these moments opened by this moment, making ready. Under our feet the whole of death, with sorrow. Beautiful poem, is it not? Nothing can be that has not formerly been. Nothing can be that shall not become tomorrow. Behold here the law of recurrence, a constant repetition of successive lives. Thus, in every existence everything comes to occur again such as it happened before. Indeed, time is woodworm's dust, pains through Satan. The repetition of this drama of existence is a vicious circle. Do you want to know what will be your destiny in your future existence? I want you to know that upon the eternal nights of a foregone time, the eternal nights of tomorrow open. Do you comprehend? When again you will be born in this valley of tears, the past will become future. This signifies that your present life, with all of its vain happiness, sufferings, and sorrows, will unfortunately be repeated. But what about epigenesis, or creation of new causes? Then what? Woe, wretched mortals of the earth! Do you believe, perchance, that the ego or pluralized I is capable of creating something new? Do you ignore that the ego is memory, that it is accumulated dust from centuries? Gnostics. It is indispensable for you to dissolve the ego. To die from moment to moment is urgent. What is new arrives only with death. Did you ever hear about the Buddhist pratamoksha? This is the ceremony of discharge. We, the Gnostics, practice it. To publicly confess our crimes, to exhibit them, to place them over the carpet of actuality and not to hide them, signifies, as a fact, to scorn oneself, to scorn one's I. One given night, I assisted with the pratamoksha in the Gnostic church. Somebody else, it does not matter who, seated himself upon a comfortable chair in front of the congregation, and a great being placed himself behind him. The devotee publicly confessed all the crimes of his life in front of the brotherhood. After confessing some crime, the devotee paused. Then, in those moments, the priest and the congregation were begging to the penitent's Divine Mother Kundalini to cast the eye that personified such a sin downwards into the infernal worlds. It is obvious that the Divine Mother Kundalini wisely operated by eliminating the entity that personified the confessed crime. I comprehended then that indeed, the Buddhist pratamoksha is a ceremony of discharge. To declare such crimes implied, as a fact, to publicly describe the history of his life. It was explained to me that this type of pratamoksha is practiced 3 or 5 times during the course of our existence. Pertaining to the Gnostic liturgy, a very special form of monthly pratamoksha exists, which is very necessary for all the devotees. In this monthly pratamoksha, the devotee publicly confesses in front of the fraternity only the crime or crimes committed within the last 30 days of his existence. Study this, as it is explained in our second chamber book entitled Gnostic Liturgy and Constitution for Gnostic Institutions. It is obvious that without the help of the Divine Mother Kundalini, the elimination of all the diverse entities that personify our errors would be impossible. These diverse forms of pratamoksha are very useful in order to eliminate all of those diverse psychological aggregates that constitute the ego. The return of the 70 confirms the pratamoksha. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils, egos of the people, are subject unto us through thy name. Luke 10 verse 17. It is written that Jesus, the great Kabir, answered, I beheld Satan, the pluralized I, as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, black entities of sin, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding, in this rejoice not, that the malignant spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice, because your names are written in heaven. Luke 10 verses 18 to 20. Be careful, Gnostic priests, of falling into pride as a result of having been given the power in order to work with Divine Kundalini, for the elimination of the devil egos. Be meek, pure, and simple. The Pratamoksha is necessary during the work with the gold and with the silver, with the sun and with the moon, in the forge of the Cyclops. Let us remember Joshua uttering, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon, in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, symbol of the esoteric work, until the people, the initiates, had avenged themselves upon their enemies, their devil egos. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the Son, Christ, stood still in the midst of heaven, in order to guide the initiate, as he always does it, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. Joshua 10 verses 12 to 13. The cosmic Christ, the solar Logos, the Son of Midnight, guides all of those who fight against their enemies, the tenebrous eyes, the red devils of Seth, the ego. Chapter 46. The 12 Nidanas. Ancient wisdom emphasizes the idea of 7 pathways towards the ineffable joy of non-existence, which is the absolute being in real existence. In its depth, such a luminous idea is unitary, since there is only one pathway with 7 journeys. Let us think of the astrological formula of the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. It is unquestionable that each one of the 7 worlds is intimately related with one of the 7 journeys. Did you ever hear about the 12 causes of the being? What do you know about the 4 noble truths? It is obvious that the 12 Nidanas and the 4 truths specially characterize the Hinayana Sutrayana system. The Nidanas belong to that wise theory of the current of the concatenation law, which produces merit and demerit, and which finally manifests karma in the whole plenitude of its power. It is a system which has the famous laws of transmigration, return, and recurrence as a foundation. It is obvious that the Hinayana system or lesser vehicle Shulis of a very ancient origin, while the Mahayana or greater vehicle school belongs to a posterior period. It had its origin after the disincarnation of Buddha. It is clear that in their depth, both schools teach the same esoteric doctrine. Yana or vehicle is a mystical expression. Therefore, both vehicles signify that we can escape from the torture of rebirths by means of the realization of the innermost self, the being. We need to dress with the Dharma Mega, the cloud of virtue, the marvelous splendor of the perfect ones who renounce powers. All the diverse ideas that emerge and that make us believe that we need something exterior in order to be happy are obstacles for our perfection. The innermost being is happiness and beatitude by his own nature. Unfortunately, knowledge of this is covered by past impressions. It is urgent, it is indispensable, it is necessary for such impressions to exhaust their effects. Their destruction is done in the same manner as we do with ignorance and egotism, etc. If when arriving at the correct discrimination of the essences, we even reject their fruition, then the samadhi named cloud of virtue comes as a consequence. Whosoever is dressed with the cloud of virtue is liberated from sufferings and works. Nevertheless, this does not signify that such a one is exempt from the possibility of downfall. We can pass beyond any danger only by entering into the absolute. The successive transformations of qualities only disappear when we absorb ourselves within the abstract absolute space. The changes that exist in relation with given moments and that are perceived at the end of a series of then become another succession of moments in the other extreme. Succession does not exist for the self-realized and diamantine spirit. Only the eternal present exists for him. He lives from moment to moment. He has liberated himself from the 12 Nidanas. Chapter 47. The thymus gland. The thymus is a very important gland of internal secretion, and we must profoundly study it. Men of science know very well that such a gland is found situated underneath the thyroid gland, in that forward superior mediastinal cavity, behind the upper thorax bones. Any biologist knows by observation and direct experience that the thymus gland usually consists of two longitudinal lobes, united throughout a central plane. The constitution of this marvelous and formidable gland is admirable. Each lobe is extraordinarily formed by even more small divisions that are called lobules. It is obvious, and any scientist can comprehend, that each lobule is comprised of an external portion or cortex and a central portion or medulla. It is obvious that the thymus gland of a child is relatively large. However, by all means it is clear to verify that during the last part of childhood, the weight of this gland gradually diminishes in relation to the weight of the body. Biology teaches that the thymus gland marvelously evolves in children until acquiring a specific weight of 25 to 40 grams. Endocrinologists do not ignore that such a gland generally starts its devolving processes between 11 and 14 years of age. It is unquestionable that such a regression is very slow, and it endures the whole life. A wise author, whose name I do not mention, textually states the following: "We still do not know enough about the thymus gland, yet it seems that this gland is the one that dominates the development of the child's body before puberty. It inhibits the activity of the testicles and ovaries. Castration causes the persistent development of the thymus body. The extraction of the thymus gland or its inhibition by means of X-rays accelerates the development of the gonads. The continued action of the thymus gland after puberty causes peculiarities in the sexual expression. Degenerated and repulsive practices appear invariably in the persons in whom the function of the thymus gland predominates. The thymus gland impedes the differentiation and stops the transformation towards a positive sexual expression, whether it is related with a man or a woman. If tadpoles are nourished with the thymus substance, then their development and differentiation into a male or female frog is impeded. People in whom the function of the thymus gland predominates become homosexual. The male does not entirely become male, and because within him remains too much that is potentially feminine, he likes the society of males more than the society of females. The female will still be potentially male, and therefore she will enjoy more the company of the female. A multitude of criminal and degenerated persons are mainly people within whom the action of the thymus gland predominates. The thymus gland seems to be the conductor of the body of the creature. It furnishes it with many of the necessary elements for its structure. The thymus gland begins to hold its action during puberty. Therefore, it is supposed to be the propulsive gland for the infantile development. The process of calcification has become retarded in those animals in which the thymus gland has been extracted. It seems that the thymus gland dominates the lymphatic system. Therefore, degenerated infrasexual people, like homosexuals and lesbians within whom lamentably the action of the thymus gland predominates, are the fatal outcome of a degenerated sexual seed. It is obvious that a degenerated seed does not serve for the intimate self-realization of the being. If the germ does not die, then the plant cannot be born. It is obvious that the real and true human being can only be born from the normal seed. Homosexuality and lesbianism indicate, aim to a devolving, regressive, and descendant process. It is pathetic, clear, and apparent that not a single legitimate school of regeneration would ever admit degenerated seeds inside of its bosom. Chapter 48. The Negative Confession 1. From the Papyrus of Nu. Let us now utter from the profound depth of all ages. Listen to me, humans and gods. The negative confession from the Papyrus of Nu is for those human beings who have achieved radical and absolute death. After the definitive annihilation of the ego and of the three traitors of Hiram Abiff, we can certainly give unto ourselves the luxury of penetrating into the double hall of the truth and justice, dressed with the glorious bodies of Kamuar. To intend to victoriously enter into the double hall of Mot without previously having passed through the supreme death would be useless. We are not referring to the death of the physical body. only the authentic defuncts have the right to the negative confession. Indeed, only they can submit themselves to the terrible confession from the Papyrus of Nu of the Egyptian mysteries. Let it be understood that the authentic defuncts are those who have died in themselves within the 49 regions of their subconsciousness. Therefore, any true defunct can present himself, dressed with his solar bodies, in the double hall of Mahat, in order to perform his negative confession. Negative confession. Homage to thee, O great God, thou Lord of truth and justice, I have come to thee, O powerful Lord. I have brought myself hither, that I may behold thy radiant beauty. I know thee, and I know thy magic name, and I know the names of the 42 divinities who surround thee in this vast hall of truth and justice, who live as warders of sinners and who feed upon their blood on the day when the sins of men are taken into account in the presence of Osiris. The 2 goddesses, twin sisters with 2 eyes, Lord of the order of the universe is thy name. Behold, that I have brought in my heart truth and justice to thee, since I have destroyed all wickedness from it, for thee. I have not done evil to mankind. I have not oppressed the members of my family. I have not brought injustice in the place of justice. I have had no knowledge of worthless men. I have not wrought evil. I have not made to be the first consideration of each day that excessive labor should be performed for me. I have not brought forward my name for exaltation to honors. I have not ill-treated servants. I have not thought scorn of gods. I have not defrauded the oppressed one of his properties. I have not done that which is an abomination unto the gods. I have not caused harm to be done to the servant by his chief. I have not caused pain. I have made no man to suffer hunger. I have made no one of my neighbors to weep. I have done no murder. I have not given the order for murder to be done for me. I have not inflicted sicknesses upon mankind. I have not defrauded the temples of their oblations. I have not purloined the cakes of the gods. I have not carried off the cakes offered to the sanctified spirits. I have not polluted myself by committing shameful actions within the sacrosanct precinct of the temples. I have not diminished from the bushel. I have neither added to nor filched away land. I have not encroached upon the fields of others. I have not added to the weights of the scales to cheat the seller. I have not misread the pointer of the scales to cheat the buyer. I have not carried away the milk from the mouth of children. I have not driven away the cattle which were upon their pastures. I have not snared the feathered fowls of the preserves of the gods. I have not caught fish with bait made of fish of their kind. I have not turned back the water at the time when it should flow. I have not cut a cutting in a canal of running water. I have not extinguished a fire or light when it should burn. I have not violated the rules of the offerings, the chosen meat offerings. I have not driven off the cattle from the property of the temples of the gods. I have not repulsed a god in his manifestation. I am pure. I am pure. I am pure. My purity is the purity of that great phoenix which is in the city of Heracleopolis. For, behold, I am the Lord of the respiration who mocketh all the initiates to live on the solemn day when the eye of Horus in the presence of the divine Lord of this earth, which is Heliopolis at the end. For behold, I have seen the eye of Horus in Heliopolis at the end, therefore, O gods, let not evil befall me in this land, and in your hall of truth and justice, because I, even I, know the names of these gods who are therein and who are about Maat, the great divinity of truth and justice. Here ends the negative confession from the Papyrus of Nu. In our future 1970 to 1971 Christmas message, we will continue with the Papyrus 2, Nibsenti. Chapter 49. Koan. What is a koan exercise? This is something that we, the Gnostics, must profoundly study. Koan is the Japanese pronunciation of the Chinese phrase kungan, whose original meaning is document of an official agreement on the desk. It is obvious that Zen Buddhists give the term koan a totally different meaning. It is obvious that they designate as koan a certain mystical dialogue between master and disciple. For example, a certain monk asked the master Tongshan, "Who is the Buddha?" The master strangely answered, "3 chin, a measurement, of flax." A Buddhist monk asked the master Chao Cho, "What is the meaning of the arrival of the Bodhisattva from the west?" The answer was, "The cypress tree that is in the garden." An enigmatic answer, is it not? All these famous stories that are narrated in the aforementioned manner are koans. It is evident, clear, and obvious that koan designates a Zen story, a Zen situation, a Zen problem. The esoteric koan exercise generally means to seek the solution to a Zen problem. Behold here some koan examples for meditation. Who recites the name of Buddha? If all things are reduced to the unity, what can the unity be reduced to? It is unquestionable that the mind will never be able to solve a Zen problem. It is obvious that our understanding will never be able to comprehend the deep significance of a koan. By all means, it is easy to foresee that when the mind tries to integrally comprehend any koan, it fails and becomes defeated. Then, the mind remains in a profound stillness and in silence. Thus, when the mind is still, when the mind is in silence, the new arrives. In those moments, the essence, the Buddhata, escapes from within the intellect. Then, while in the absence of the I, it experiences that which does not belong to time. That is the satori, the ecstasy of saints, the samadhi. In those moments, we can experience the reality, the truth. It is necessary to use in our Gnostic lexicon the word koan instead of the Chinese word huatu, since the word koan is now well known and officially accepted in the West. Therefore, the word koan as well as huatu are respectively used in their general and specific sense. In the aged country China, the Zen, Chan, Buddhists do not utilize the term koan. They prefer to say huatu exercise. A monk asked Master Chao Cho, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" The master answered, "Wu, no." This single word wu, besides being a mantra that is pronounced as a W like imitating the sound of a hurricane, is also a koan itself. To work with the koan wu while having the mind still and in silence is something marvelous. The experience of the illuminating void allows us to experience an element that radically transforms. Chapter 50. Final Salutations. Beloved ones, we have concluded the present 1969 to 1970 Christmas message. This is another book of the Fifth Gospel. Study and live it. I want to tell you that these teachings for the new Aquarian era are being delivered in accordance with the Law of Musical Octaves. Each one of the books is developed in successively higher notes. Therefore, when we will arrive at the note synthesis, the message shall be concluded. Afterwards, at that time, I will depart with my Divine Mother Kundalini towards eternity. Friends of mine, I beg you in a very dear way, do not send me through the mail or through any other way either praises, adulation, or flattery. Any letter carrying such vanities will be immediately sent back. It is not enough to read this book, it is necessary to very profoundly study it, and to put these teachings into practice. It is indispensable to leave the lukewarm state and to decide once and for all to tread the path of the razor's edge. Friends of mine, I wish for you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. May the Star of Bethlehem shine on your path. In Verential peace. Samael Aun Weor.